What's up YouTube? Welcome back to Jackal Gold Games, and in this video I'm going to be doing a review for the video game Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, which is the updated remaster kind of remake of Dead Rising 1, the original game released in 2006. This came out in 2024. Let's review it. So I finally got around to playing this game this year, and I finally did everything in it, got the platinum trophy for it. So here's what I think of this game, here's my review of it. Now to keep it spoiler free for a little bit, here's what I'll say. This is a faithful, updated take on Dead Rising 1. I think this takes Dead Rising back to where it needs to be, and I think it's really good. I definitely think it's worth getting. It's an enjoyable game. If you're a Dead Rising fan, I think this is worth getting, and I think you'll really dig this, and it's really awesome. So there's the quick thoughts, spoiler free. But now let's jump into it. The rest of this review will contain spoilers. So Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster is made with the RE engine, 4K 60 FPS, updated graphics and different voice acting, a lot of other changes to the original Dead Rising 1. Now it's still the same story. Basically the concept of this game is the same as the original, where you're Frank West, a photojournalist. You go into Willamette City go into the town of Willamette, and then you go to the Willamette Mall to figure out what's going on there, figure out there's zombies, there's a guy named Carlito. You got to find a scoop. There's a bunch of survivors to rescue. So there's main missions and side missions. You can level up in the game. There's other characters in the story. You got to find the scoop, and you have like 3 days until the helicopter shows up, and then you got to escape on the helicopter when the game's over. And then there's also an overtime mode. So the overall concept is you as this photojournalist, Frank West, trying to get the scoop while also doing all the side missions and stuff that are optional if you want to do them. So that's the overall concept. You have characters in there like Brad and Jesse, who are DHS agents. You have Otis, who is a Willamette security guard or something, and he helps you get survivors with the transceiver. Now, I really enjoyed my time with this game. I thought this was a pretty good, faithful version of Dead Rising 1, and I did enjoy this game. Visually, I think this game looks really nice. I think they did a pretty good job with the character models. They all look pretty good. Larry's new design, there's a lot of controversy around it, but he is still the same nationality he was in the original. So I don't know why some people were saying he was a white guy now, because he's the same nationality that he was in the original. And I think his new design is actually pretty cool. I don't mind it. And I heard changes like that, as well as the little change they made to Cliff's dialogue and stuff. Apparently it was the way for them to get the game released internationally, because this game did have controversy, and it was called woke and stuff like that. Now, personally, I don't think it's woke now. Do I think the dialogue change with Cliff was weird? I do think so. I do think the original dialogue sounded better. It fit more with him being a military guy. But it doesn't hurt the game. It doesn't make it a bad experience. It's just little, I guess, minor nitpicks, I guess. But at least you have this version and the original, so you can always go back to the original. But I think visually it looks really nice. I think they went with Beta Frank's design, like how he looked in the beta version of Dead Rising 1 original, for his design in this game. But I think the character models all look good. Visually, it looks great. There's a lot of color to the game. The only thing I will say with the RE engine is there's times where the lighting looked kind of weird, like on certain roofs or when you're walking. I don't know if it was like fuzziness or something, but there was times where it looked kind of weird. I think it's something with the RE engine. But other than that, it looked great visually. It ran great for me as well, 60 frames the whole way through. I played it on PS5 Pro, by the way. This is my first game on PS5. So the visuals are really good. Zombies look great. And yeah, really solid in terms of visuals. Gameplay wise, it was really fun to play. There was a lot of new changes they added to this version, gameplay wise. Like, for example, one of the special forces you fight later on, they drop rocket launchers, which apparently was a gun that was in the beta version. So it's cool to have that. It's cool to have rocket launchers in the game. You also have new books in there. Like, one of them is more firearm damage, which is pretty cool. And there's some other ones in there too. Survivors are easier to rescue in this game, which I guess I understand why they did that, but I do kind of prefer how it was in the original, because it was more tough to rescue the survivors because their AI was so stupid. But I get why they changed it, and at least I could go back to that version if I want to experience that again. So the survivors are easier to rescue. The survivors and all the characters, when there wasn't cutscenes and they talked and it was just text you read in the original, all of it is fully voiced now, and that's really cool. I think that's a nice change, definitely one of the coolest change about this game. Survivors sometimes will point out hidden items or where certain things are. Now, because I'm so familiar with the original Dead Rising 1, this was a walk in the park for me for the most part, because I knew where everything was. I knew what that item was, where it was at, what boss to kill with this weapon, stuff like that. There is a difficulty option. You can play it on normal or casual, which is interesting. I played on both. Casual is definitely easier. Normal, it felt like there was difficulty, but it's not as hard as the original one. But I would say for those that couldn't handle the difficulty of the original Dead Rising, this is probably an easier way for you to get into it. But the gameplay is really enjoyable. You have all the weapons, katanas, baseball bats, benches, TVs, tons of variety of weapons to use. You got guns you can use. You can move and shoot in the game, but because they have like modern controls in the game. But that's something I will critique this for, is that when I did have it on modern controls, Frank's aiming with the guns was always glitched. He was always aiming it off the screen, and it bothered me. I had to turn it to classic controls in order for the guns to actually be aimed in the regular way. I don't know why that was, but it was a glitch I didn't really care for. So that was a flaw with the game. Gameplay wise, it doesn't feel like there's as many zombies on screen as there was in the original. I mean, there's a lot of zombies in here, but you go into certain parts of the tunnels and certain areas, especially the tunnels, it just doesn't feel like there's as many mass amounts of zombies in certain areas as there was in the original. Not a huge deal, but something I will say. So gameplay wise, it's very fun. You got psychopaths you can fight. Psychopaths in here are pretty cool. It's cool to see the updated takes on them. The convicts still respawn. They're a lot smarter this time. They don't get stuck on stuff. It's fun to kill them and take their vehicle and run over zombies with it. Use other vehicles in the maintenance tunnels. You can give survivors weapons if you want. Some of them have to be carried back, or you hold their hand and take them back to the safe house. So gameplay is really solid for the most part. And now the voice acting. So this got a whole new voice cast compared to the original game. Now, the voice actors in this game I warmed up to for the most part. I don't mind them now, though I still prefer the original voice actors. I would say the only one that really stuck out as being, like, to me, kind of very inferior to the original is Brock's voice. Brock's voice in this version of me lacks that raspiness or grit that a military commander should have, and I feel like the one in the original really captured that. So I warmed up to the voice acting for this game, but I still do prefer the original just because it's so iconic. But I got used to the voice actors in this game. I think they did do a pretty good job for the most part, especially the new guy for Frank West. So voice acting I mostly didn't have an issue with. Some other stuff I wanted to mention with gameplay is that you can mix drinks if you want, like the original. You can make Quick Step, which they changed it to Fleetfoot. It's interesting they changed the name of some of these mixed drinks, and there's other mixed drinks as well. You can take pictures as well for experience or for certain missions like the Kent ones, and you know, stuff like that. So yeah, the areas in the game are pretty nice, much like the original. You have Willamette Mall, you have Wonderland Plaza, Paradise Plaza, the Movie Land, you have the tunnels, you have the food court, you have Alfresha Plaza, you have North Plaza, you got all the places you know from the original. They all look great in this version, all, you know, done up with nice graphics, especially Paradise Plaza. There were parts of that that kind of reminded me of the Atlantica Casino in Dead Rising 2, which I really think they'll do Dead Rising 2 next, because there's DLC where you can get Chuck's costume, which is pretty cool, and Frank's classic, and there's other ones as well. I wasn't able to get all of them right now, but there's those, and then parts of Paradise Plaza where it looks kind of like sea-like. It reminds me of Atlantica Casino and Dead Rising 2, which makes me believe that they will eventually remaster Dead Rising 2 like they did this one, because I see little things like that. But it looked really nice. The kind of new stuff they added made the areas a lot more alive and put more stuff in there, especially the tunnels with some of the lighting they put in there. And yeah, I think the setting in the game and the areas look really cool. And the maps, you know, kind of the same as was in the original. The transceiver they changed where you can answer Otis's calls. It can still kind of get interrupted, but this time you can actually attack zombies and do a lot more rather than just have to wait for the call to finish and have to just avoid zombies. So they did tweak the transceiver thing from the original, which is pretty nice. It's cool to have Otis have a voice now. I think the voices they got for the characters that never could talk were pretty good, I thought. So yeah, that's one of the changes they did as well. You also have parts you can get for your camera, which I didn't see much use for those, to be honest. Like, I picked them up, messed with them a little bit, but I didn't do much else besides that. I think maybe if you're starting the first time through and get all those parts, maybe you can find more use for those parts than I did if you're leveling up and stuff and it's your first playthrough. So you have the regular campaign, overtime mode still in there, which is nice. And you gotta, basically you go through the main campaign, which is solving the scoop in 72 hours, doing the main missions, working with Brad and Jesse, and then going through the mall, and then you go to overtime mode where Frank West is infected, and you got to get the stuff to heal him, to make him not become a zombie with Isabella and stuff. Then you fight Brock in the game end, so very similar to the original. And you also have Infinity Mode, which they did make Infinity Mode a lot better in this one, I thought, where in the main game and Infinity Mode, you can advance the time on your watch. So you can fast forward the time, which is pretty interesting. I never messed with it in the main game because I just felt like the timer is an essential part of Dead Rising. I never saw the point doing it in the original, especially when there's always things for me to do. You know, if there was downtime, there was trophies I could work on, or there was me working towards the zombie genocider trophy. So I didn't see much use doing that for me. And Infinity Mode, you can do it, which is nice because you don't have to set for 14 or so hours. Because I remember in the original, you had to set all day long on the console just to get that shit, just to get that achievement trophy. The unlock for the 5-Day Survivor I always thought was nice, especially the laser sword. But the 7-Day Survivor, even in the remaster, I think the unlock for it is trash. It's like for surviving for 7 days, you get underwear. I just always thought that was dumb. I think they could have gave you a much better reward. It seems like a troll type thing, comedy maybe, but I thought the reward for that could have been better, even in the remaster. And they did get rid of the erotica photo genre, which I don't really mind, to be honest. It didn't have much of an effect on me in terms of gameplay. Kent's dialogue slightly different, where instead of him saying, "This is my sexiest shot," he said, "This is my funniest shot." So Infinity Mode has that. It was still pretty challenging to get supplies. Now what's interesting in Infinity Mode is zombies actually drop boxes that you pick up to see if there's health in there, as well as cult members of Special Forces. I remember in the original you could only find health in certain places, only once, and then there were psychopaths and survivors you fought. That was kind of about it. I can't remember if, I think the cult and soldiers were in the original. It's been a minute since I did Infinity Mode. We got Infinity Mode in there. And something else I'll talk about is the characters. I think the characters in the game are really awesome, much like the original. Frank West, who is your main character, really cool main character, great photojournalist. It's unique that he's a photojournalist because it's not like a soldier or military character like any other zombie game. So I like that he's a photojournalist, which is unique. Brad is a DHS agent you work with here and there. He's a pretty cool character. Jesse, I don't mind her. She's a DHS agent. She's kind of more stationary at the safe house. You got Barnaby, who, you know, I think one of my friends said this, and it's true. This game kind of has like 3 villains: Barnaby, Brock, and Carlito. Like the 3 villains, sort of. Dr. Barnaby's in there. He has a huge role to play in the story. You have a lot of, the psychopaths, Cliff and Adam, and, Brock, and the cult members, the convicts, and Kent, and all of them. A lot of the psychopaths and survivors are very interesting. Characters in the story are interesting. So characters are pretty solid in this game for sure. I thought it was really cool how when you fought the snipers in the entrance plaza, if you kill Roger and Jack, you can actually talk to Thomas. That was really neat that they did that, because I always felt like they could have did something with that in the original, because he was hesitant to shoot you compared to his brother and father. Now you can't rescue him, but I thought it was nice that they put that in there. So yeah, I'm trying to think about what other stuff I could say for the game. Cover art's pretty dope for the PS5 version. I do like the cover art. There's the cover art in the back up close if you've only seen it. I think the disc art is pretty nice. Frank West with a chainsaw. I did go for all the endings in this game. I think it's cool that the Dead Rising series always had multiple endings. The endings are really cool. You have the best ending, and then you have like ending B and all the other ones. It was cool to get all the endings and, go for all of them. That was always nice. I should try to get the endings, all of the endings in the other games, because I didn't mess with that too much back in the day. The zombies look great, like I said. And yeah, overall, when it comes to Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, I think this is a great game. I think it's an awesome Dead Rising game. I think it's a nice return to form for the Dead Rising series. You know, Dead Rising was not in a good place for Dead Rising 3, especially Dead Rising 4, and this, I think, was a good way to bring the series back. It's interesting because back in the day, I did a discussion video on my main channel saying the next game Capcom should remake after they did RE4 was Dead Rising 1, and they mostly did that. So it was cool to see. Really enjoyed it. Awesome game. Played it like 4 times. It was fun to get the trophies for it and get the platinum for it. And yeah, I really enjoyed my time with this game. It was a blast. The only criticism I could give to end this review would be not as many zombies as in the original. And, you know, I did think Brock's voice wasn't as, you know, military-like as the original. And, you know, the Cliff dialogue change was weird, and sometimes the lighting looks a little strange in the RE engine when you're moving around. It looks like there's fuzziness on Frank's back, or like a certain thing in the rooftops. But that's kind of some of the only critiques I could think of for this game. It would have been cool. One of the things I will say, I forgot to mention, that I'm glad they did with this game, they kept the original soundtrack, which I'm glad they did that. The original soundtrack is kept intact in this game, and I'm glad that they did that. So you get all the songs, all iconic music. They didn't change it. I think that's an essential part of Dead Rising 1, and I'm glad they kept the soundtrack in there. That's awesome. So, yeah, that's really all I got to say for my review of Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. That's what I thought of it. I'm a big fan of the Dead Rising series, and this was really nice. And I'm glad I finally got to play this because I didn't get a PS5 till this year, so this is my chance to finally experience this. So, yeah, that's all I got to say in this review. Let me know what you thought of this game in the comments below. Here's hoping they do Dead Rising 2 next in this style. Peace out.